Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We have said on this platform that Zimbabwe is a failed state. There is no denying it. In 1980, when Zimbabwe gained her independence, the country had the potential to become the South Korea of Africa. Instead, we've become the North Korea of Africa, a failed state. We did not know how to suck the marrow of life. And so we've been choking on the bone with tragic consequences. The reality is, even now, 46 years after independence, as a nation, we still have no clue what is going on, let alone how to fix it. In a few days' time, Zimbabwe will be concluding this so-called Constitutional Amendment Bill number 3 public hearing. It will go to Parliament. And signs are Parliament is going to rubber stamp that. This is exactly what I mean when saying we don't know what we are doing, let alone how to fix it. Because one of the reasons why the country is a failed state is because we've been stuck with a corrupt, incompetent, and tyrannical ZANU-PF dictatorship. And this constitutional amendment bill is not dismantling the dictatorship. It's making it even stronger. This is the tragedy of Zimbabwe. Welcome to the program, Ben.
Good day to you and good day to our viewers. Thank you for joining us. I think we have really nobody else to blame but ourselves. The writing on the wall was there from the very beginning. Just after independence, we saw the signs that this was not going to be what we wanted it to be or what we fought for. And when we saw the signs, we chose to ignore. I remember an interview that was conducted, just after, ZANU-PF winning elections. And the interviewer asked, what if Mugabe fails? The answers that came from, the people that spoke was rather shocking for people that wanted democracy, for people that were expecting democracy. Knowing that democracy, one of the fundamental requirements is for you to be informed, for you to have free will, for you to express that free will. And when they were asked, what if Mugabe fails? One says, I don't want to think about it. The other one says, he will not fail. But did they answer the question, what if he fails? What is the plan? What is the way forward? And clearly there was no way forward. There was no plan. And guess what? He did fail. And there was no plan. 46 years later, there is no plan.
Here is one interview that Robert Mugabe gave, and he's talking about the one-party state.
Hey, one-party state. Shoko ngari kude muno rokusungana panyaya yacho ndataura. Rozobuda kumayouth toriburitsa muna August. Mushure mezvo mosira Central Committee. Kude one Zambia, one G, one nation. One nation, Iowa. One nation, one leader. Those are the names of Zambia. One Zambia, one nation. One nation, one leader.
It is that belief that has been at the heart of our failed state. The belief that one has to dominate. It is not founded by reason. This is the animal, primeval instinct, dominate or be dominated. Man is supposed to be a creature of reason. And human history, as we evolved, human beings began to realize the sheer futility of this endless cycle of trying to dominate other people and they fighting back. This is where the value, the logic of do unto others as you want them to do unto you was finally appreciated. It is a rational thing to do. Mugabe here is talking of we want a one-party state. We want a one-man dictatorship. And yet, even during the Liberation War, ZANU-PF could not reconcile themselves with the idea that Zimbabwe could become a one-party state where that one party is PF SAPU. They wanted a one-party state as long as ZANU-PF is the one party that is ruling. They wanted a one leader as long as Mugabe himself happened to be that leader. This has been at the heart of our problem. The individual begins to think that they are a demigod. One of the realities about Mugabe after independence is that he genuinely believed that he is the man who was going to deliver kutsarushinji, mass prosperity in Zimbabwe. He never doubted that. And interestingly enough, when Mnangagwa took over in 2017, he had the same fixation, same mentality. When he launched his so-called Zimbabwe is open for business, he never doubted that it was going to result in a flood of investors who would turn around Zimbabwe's failed economy. He never doubted that. This is one of the problems with some of these people. They believe they are a demigod. and they cannot imagine being held to account by anybody. And when their idea fails, they cannot reconcile with that reality that they have failed. This is at the heart of why Zimbabwe is a failed state.
I don't think ZANU-PF ever wanted democracy or even Gutsarujinji and any form of development in the country from the very beginning. I don't think they had that intention, because shortly after the war, you were talking about one man, one vote. And then people vote, and then you get into power. And then you shut that door completely by saying one party, one state. You have closed the door to democracy. You have closed that door for one man, one vote. Because basically that one man, one vote is useless. It's going one way. There's no longer any choice. So it becomes rather redundant. When you look at mass prosperity, how do we achieve that? Given that Zimbabwe was an agricultural based economy, and 46 years, even after independence, the majority of Zimbabweans do not even have title deeds to the land that they are currently situated on. So it's how do you then achieve Gutsarujinji, independence, prosperity, when you do not own anything? It was never their intention for any of these good things to happen. Democracy, one man, one vote, mass, prosperity. It was never their intention. Because if it was their intention, policies would have been put in place that would have facilitated those things to happen. But they were never. Instead, the exact opposite was created. North Korea was created from the very first day they came into office. And arguably before, because we need to also realize that they made it abundantly clear that if ZANU-PF does not win the election in 1980, the Bush War would never stop. So they were prepared to say, it is me and me alone. Here they've just gone the extra step. Mugabe went to the extra step to consolidate that position. And we are also seeing Emerson Mnangagwa doing the same thing to consolidate his, the dictatorship under himself as well. So I think it is wrong for us to believe that at some point they had that idea. No. I think they never had that idea, because the evidence shows that it was never their intention.
The issue of one man, one vote, the issue of one party dictatorship, the issue of that the individuals in power, in this case here, ZANU-PF leadership, had all the answers. They were the Mr. Know-it-all. Has been at the heart of what the nation has had to face. It's interesting to note that even now, hardcore ZANU-PF supporters believe that the party, ZANU-PF, has the divine right to rule. One of the biggest contention with the late blessed bombshell Gazer and those who supported him was that they wanted to continue to support him as a challenge to the Mnangagwa dictatorship. And some of us were arguing that we are not going to repeat the same mistake of 2017. We are not going to remove one dictator only to replace him with another dictator. That was the argument. Because there is no doubt that Gaza, that is what he was looking at. Here he is reiterating exactly what he was talking about.
aiwaga ndiri kutaurire imwe zvinhu zvinoitika hani ndiri kutokutaurira kuratidza kuti hatina kupusaka because ndiri kutokutaurira kuti tozviziva takapusaka ndisikakutauriri zvese we'll deal with this situation at the appropriate time but ndiri kutotaura kuti commander vamunangagwa right navachiwenga handidi right ngavadissolve polity bureau tikwane isu varidzi vechunhu ngavadissolve cabinet inoti nana kazembe vana soda vanani havambodzi kutaura vane kupaniwa vane kambamuda vanani why do you hate your comrades kune mageneral kune retired CIO vakawanda kune retired commissioners of police and other senior officers vakawanda havadiwe.
Maybe the president is looking at capacity and capability.
Bullshit. Vana grade 7 ane capacity and capability. Grade 7 oita busy yokuti nhasi aitwa minister of state mangwana provincial minister isiripo. We are not apologetic about it. Chinhu chedu ichi toda kutopinda ndoda kuti president vanipo zimota varipo chi ndoda mabodyguards ini.
But you've got your own cars. You've got a hotel at your house that you built in Sanyat. Why do you want all this?
I want to be rewarded as well, not to be used like a political condom all the time. I'm not a political condom. And urikoda vana mahiya vaya vana vamwe.
This has been at the heart of why we are a failed state. The political system that emerged after independence was being ruled by individuals who believed that they have the divine right to rule the country. They must be in power. They must be controlling everything. And even now, 46 years down the line, with all the mountain of evidence that the system has failed, they cannot reconcile with that reality. The best they can do is swap one dictator for another. Which is why we're saying here we have failed to run the country, and we still don't even know what has failed, much less what to do about it. I'd like to remind those who would like to join us and express their own views as well, to join us on the address that is being shown on the bottom of your screen there on streamyard.com. If you copy it as it is, we can add you in onto the discussion if you want to express your views. Ben.
A lot of Zimbabweans still, like I said from the very beginning, they do not understand where the problem is, much more how to get ourselves out of this mess. ZANU-PF made it known from the very beginning that it was never going to be any other except themselves. The essence of the war was taken away because I believe one of the most, or the fundamental reasons for fighting for independence was for one man, one vote. And when they stated that it was no other than myself, they took away the war. They took away the rights. And we chose not to see it. We turned a blind eye. Now let's just get rid of, Smith and hope Mugabe becomes, a better character. And fast forward 2017. Now let's just get rid of Mugabe and hope Mnangagwa is a better character. I mean, that was exactly what people thought would be. And boy, were they wrong. Because already, we are not talking about now, a year later, he was killing people. People were shot. We were starting to see, documentaries of how he is now number one in corruption, the smuggling of gold. We got rid of Mugabe saying he was surrounded by criminals. Mnangagwa is literally surrounded by criminals. He walks with them. Sometimes he doesn't even need cabinet. He'd rather take the thieves with. I believe our worst nightmare is ourselves. Self-inflicted wounds. You can just imagine the world over when they saw us celebrating the ouster of Mugabe and us replacing him with Mnangagwa. Zimbabweans, some Zimbabweans made a joke for that day. They called it, Zungu Day. I mean, the world must have been in disgust to say, surely these guys here, they don't have a plan. 1980, we didn't have a plan. Fast forward, we didn't have a plan in 2017. And up to today, I believe up to today, there is no plan on how to fix Zimbabwe or what needs to be done to fix Zimbabwe. Because when you look at all the political players that are there, be it even in the opposition, Mnangagwa addressed the opposition and the members of parliament at his farm. And he recognizes that there is need for an opposition. Because, I mean, competition, pushes you. He acknowledged that fact. But we all know that these characters have been bribed and are already part and parcel of the corrupt system. And each and every time, these guys, the opposition, are dragging the nation saying, let us go into election. Elections that from the very beginning, 1980, were not free, fair, and credible. Then the question is, do we know what needs to be done to get ourselves out of this hellhole? Do we know what is the next step to take for us to find that democratic path? And the answer for me right now, 46 years in, is most Zimbabweans are actually clueless of how to fix this mess. Which I think, it's a big shame. It's a big shame for a country that was earmarked for greatness. The next Singapore, the next South Korea, turned now into North Korea. And as things look, it seems as if we are sinking deeper and deeper into the unknown. Because now we have this whole Curb 3 that threatens whatever democracy that was there, if there was any.
One of the arguments that has been used by ZANU-PF particularly for advancing this idea of one-party state, one country, one leader, is unity. If you look at Gukurahundi, the number one reason, justification for that war and what happened after was unity. The ZANU-PF wanted the nation to believe the Gukurahundi massacre happened because there was no unity. And when the Unity Accords were signed in 1987, ZANU-PF emphasized that we must maintain unity, and any meaningful opposition, criticism of the system was crushed on the basis that it threatened unity. This has been a false doctrine because unity is now being used to justify silencing everybody so that we all fall into line like ducks and follow blindly the leader. And for the last 46 years, the nation has been following leaders blindly under this veil, this cloud, that to criticize the leader is to threaten unity. And the leaders themselves within that have elevated themselves to the point of becoming demigods who can do no wrong. And hence the reason why they should not be challenged. Here is a video clip explaining the folly of blindly doing something. Excuse me, seem to be having some technical problems. Computer is slowing down.
No, I think that the biggest problem, like I said, is with many Zimbabweans out there that have decided to turn a blind eye or to not think about it, like one of the person on the interview that I spoke about that occurred in 1980. It's not the absence of evidence that points to say Zimbabwe is heading in the wrong direction. I mean, the evidence is galore. We've had different organizations come up and show Zimbabweans and the world to say, look, this is what Zimbabwe is doing. Zimbabwe is losing, for example, $2 billion worth of revenue from gold because of corruption. And they went on to expose who is the most corrupt. And it's none other than, number one. And that is not all. We've had even close to home, South Africa, bring out evidence of monies that were exchanged from elections, proceeds that were red flagged. And we have organizations such as ZAC, Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission, that were told about this, and they never did anything. And I expect them not to do anything. But for Zimbabweans, especially those that are well, knowledgeable, those that can speak out for those that cannot, have kept quiet about it. Rather, they have kept on pushing for elections. We will win big and so forth. To me, that seriously raises a red flag to say, ZANU-PF has been getting away with murder, corruption, and everything else because we, the people ourselves, have let them do it. We have supported them blindly. We have made demigods out of those that are in leadership positions and those that aspire to be in leadership position. They become untouchable. Right now, you cannot talk bad about, Mnangagwa, even though he has done absolutely nothing to a ZANU-PF support, because to him, he is flawless. The same thing in the opposition. They've created that untouchable person, such that even if he was to go into any position of power, they are crowned king the very moment. So I think, we cannot blame ZANU-PF entirely for all this. We have to put some blame, particularly on us, the people of Zimbabwe. We let it get away. When Mugabe mentioned that statement at 1980, how many spoke up and how many decided not to think about it? Well, a lot did not think about it. But guess what? We are thinking about it every day. We are on, different social media groups, different physical groups, organizations thinking about it and trying to find a solution to it now, which I think, it's rather a bit late, 46 years in, and still just blundering from pillar to post. We are in this mess because we chose to be in it. And one famous guy says, leaders, a nation gets the leaders they deserve. And I think we are in this position not because it was a ball from the blue. We are in this position because we applied ourselves to it.
Here is a video clip that I was talking about earlier on.
You know why alcoholics are alcoholics? Because they want to be happy without achievements. This is why drug addicts take drugs. They want to be happy without achievements. This is why fucking everyone's doing dumb shit and wants to be happy without a reason. This obsession with happiness is destroying people. There is nothing wrong with feeling a little bit sad. Nothing wrong with feeling a little bit pissed off. And you need to be putting other things above your happiness, like your responsibility to the people around you. The people you care about need to get some honor and some courage. I have respect for the man who gets up every day and works the job he fucking hates to pay for his family's life. I respect, and he is not doing it to be happy. He is doing it to be a fucking man. So you might ask yourself, what I want you to do. I want you to look at where you are right now, no matter how hard it is, no matter what you're going through, no matter what struggles you are facing. You are still here. You are still here. You are watching this video.
Well, the main message for me from this video is the importance of the people of Zimbabwe seriously looking ourselves in the mirror and realizing where we are as a nation. 46 years after independence, we are a failed state. A country that had the potential to become a prosperous, democratic, free nation on par with other countries like South Korea. We have instead become a failed state. Zimbabwe right now is a burden to the rest of the countries in the region. We are a burden. Whether we care to admit it or not is irrelevant. There are many Zimbabweans in South Africa, Botswana, and other countries in the region and beyond, because Zimbabwe is a failed state. The present political system, earlier on I talked about this Constitutional Amendment Bill number 3. This Constitutional Amendment Bill is not going to make the situation better. It's going to make it worse. Because it seeks to give this panoply of dictatorship even more dictatorial powers than the regime has, which is what got us into this mess in the first place. The main message from this video clip, as far as I am concerned, is that the people of Zimbabwe, we seriously have to look ourselves in the mirror and say this should not be happening to this country. And we need to stand up and look for, first of all, why we are in this mess. Because I believe only when we genuinely understand why we are in this mess can we start thinking of the way out. I know some people will argue. Of course, we've argued on this platform. I've had responses from some people. You are always talking about the problems, you're not giving the way forward. Those people, it's because they don't want to talk about what happened in the past. They argue that we should not waste time looking in the rearview mirror. That is not looking in the rearview mirror. That is looking at why we are a failed state, why we are where we are, so that we can make sure we don't keep repeating the same mistakes. We have had opposition leaders who have conned the nation to participate in flawed elections, elections that are so flawed, so illegal, that the result is predetermined. And they know it. And yet they've conned people to participate, telling them, I've plugged all the vote rigging loopholes. ZANU-PF will not rig the next election. And millions believed the lie, participated. Only the day after the voting is done for the individual to admit that ZANU-PF rigged the elections. The very thing that they were saying would not happen. So when people like me say we have got to question these people like Chamisa and accept that he has lied, those Chamisa Chete Brigade members say, no, you're driving, looking in the rearview mirror. No, that's not looking in the rearview mirror. If this was a vehicle, what we have seen in the last 26 years of MDC CCC leadership is leadership who have failed to plan, who have persuaded people to get onto the bus, promising that we will arrive at our destination, only to find ourselves stuck because the vehicle is broken down. The vehicle has no fuel. All the multitude of problems. You let somebody like that lead and he fails. It is, of course, idiotic to blindly follow the same leader again. Why are you doing that? If he had failed to realize, to check that the vehicle did not have enough fuel, it had not been properly maintained for the long trip, etc., etc., why would you trust him, the same individual, to lead you again on another trip? Because that is exactly what has been happening in Zimbabwe. We've been repeating the same mistakes over and over again. We need to learn from the past.
I think Zimbabweans have chose not to look at the facts as they are for a very long time. That the politician has figured that it is very, very easy to convince the people, and that the people will obviously demand very little. And I think ZANU-PF is comfortable giving us Sapatina, bicycles for the war veterans, drilling a few boreholes here and there. Zimbabweans will be content with that. They will sing praises, for that. And we have an opposition that equally knows the same thing, where they will come and say, we are going to win, rigged elections, whether they rig it or not, it doesn't matter. And we stand up and we sing songs, happy Komana, yes, and all that. But the reality of the matter is, every Zimbabwean out there knows that ZANU-PF will rig elections, and ZANU-PF will get away with it. But very few will ask the question to say, you have promised us this same thing for the past 26 years, and you have been lying. Very, very few people will do that. And unfortunately, that is not looking in the rearview mirror. That is looking at life's lessons, so that they teach us not to repeat the same thing over and over again, of which we have now been very much accustomed to do. Zimbabweans have been taken for a fool for a very long time. Since independence, we were the fools. Since the formation of this so-called fake opposition, we have been the fool. I mean, it's so obvious. This is what is happening, but we still cannot see it.
Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. That is insanity. In Zimbabwe, we have participated in flawed elections for the last 46 years. ZANU-PF has rigged elections for the last 46 years. That is a fact. We have participated in those flawed elections expecting a different result. We expected the opposition to win because the opposition told us they were going to win. They had plugged all the vote rigging loopholes to stop ZANU-PF winning those elections. We started in the late 1990s on the premise, on the understanding that ZANU-PF will never reform itself out of power. And we needed an opposition that will implement the democratic reforms to ensure free, fair, and credible elections. The truth of the matter is that opposition had the golden chance to implement those reforms and dismantle the ZANU-PF dictatorship during the GNU of 2008 to 2013. They failed to implement even one token reform. It is disheartening that even now, with the benefit of hindsight, there are many Zimbabweans out there who still refuse to accept that the MDC-CCC leaders sold out the cannot reconcile themselves with that reality. They want to keep on repeating the same mistake, expecting a different result. With the same leaders, expecting a different result. The argument is no longer that ZANU-PF is rigging the elections in this context. We have known that since the late 1990s, and we had accepted the solution was to elect an opposition who would implement the reforms. 26 years after the formation of MDC, the question then is, why is ZANU-PF still able to rig the elections? And the answer to that has to be that the MDC CCC leaders have become corrupt, incompetent, liars, and conmen. They failed to implement reforms when they had the golden chance to do so, and they've been lying to the people, conning them to participate in flawed elections, only to perpetuate the dictatorship. The solution, surely, is obvious. We need a more competent opposition. Because as long as we have an opposition that is helping ZANU-PF to stay in power, there will be no change. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. That is at the heart of why Zimbabwe is a failed state. Thank you very much. Ben, do you want to give your concluding remarks?
Yeah, in conclusion, I would want to say, at the end of the day, it becomes Zimbabwe's choice to say, what do we want? Do we want to continue putting our leaders on high pedestals and demanding very little or no accountability at all? Or we start asking ourselves the hard questions? We cannot ask them the hard questions before we ask ourselves those hard questions. What is it that we want? What is it that we demand from Zimbabwe? Where do we want our Zimbabwe to go? And then once we get those answers, I think we will then look into finding leadership that can produce such results. Because right now, you can talk of Vision 2030, for example, and there is nothing that supports Vision 2030 within even the leadership itself. So you're basically, it's not equally yoked. We are looking for something that will not happen. So I think this is where our biggest problem is. Zimbabweans since 1980 have failed to ask themselves that also important question and questions that really demanded answers at the time and are now in desperate need for answers now. This is my take on how we can come up with the solution. And the first thing that is the most important question that I think is, are we going to continue participating in rigged elections and granting ZANU-PF legitimacy? Is this our next step? Thank you.
Thank you. In conclusion, I just wanted to emphasize on the problem with the people themselves. The people themselves are celebrating the wrong things. This cartoon depicts people celebrating that one of the business individuals, Wicknell Chivayo, has bought a jet and renowned for celebrating each time he gives away cars with petrol and money for petrol and so forth. The truth of the matter is, the individual, I have nothing against somebody becoming rich and buying themselves expensive cars and even jets, as long as that wealth is generated in a transparent and honest manner. Many of Mnangagwa's close allies have become incredibly rich, and yet everybody knows that it is from looting the nation's wealth. Corruption. The tragic reality with corruption is that it is wasteful. We have discussed on this platform the Al Jazeera documentary, The Gold Mafia, in which the documentary showed that Zimbabwe was generating a staggering $2 billion per year from gold mining activities. And 80% of that was being smuggled. The problem with the smuggled money is that you cannot account for the money nor the gold. And some of those individuals are the ones who are buying jets, building mansions, have a fleet of expensive cars, money that should be, by all account, be used for the good of the nation if it's properly accounted for. No nation on earth has prospered from looting, from corruption. That is a historic fact. Like I said, corruption is wasteful. The 80% of the 2 billion on gold alone is being wasted by the few individuals at the expense of the nation, whose population, 49%, are living in abject poverty. We have got our priorities all wrong. We need to wake up to that reality. Think about it. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.